What would you do if your little boy looked into your eyes and asked, "Mom, did you forget my birthday?" That question broke my heart, and it all happened in front of our entire family. But before I tell you how my son's innocent tears changed everything, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live. Because this story will remind you that love isn't about parties, gifts, or fame. It's about remembering the hearts that remember you. The house was alive that morning. Laughter, chatter, and the smell of roasted chicken and biryani filled the air. It was my mother's 60th birthday, and every cousin, uncle, and aunt had gathered to celebrate. Balloons were everywhere, the table sparkled with a big golden 60, and the living room was bursting with joy. But somewhere among the noise and the crowd, my 8-year-old son, Arham, sat quietly near the corner of the room watching. He loved birthdays, not just his own. He was the first to clap, to sing, to blow imaginary candles beside others. But that day something felt different. I was too busy helping my mother cut the cake, laughing with my siblings, and serving guests. I didn't notice the small handmade card that Arham held in his little hands. I didn't even realize that date, the one circled on the calendar in his room, was today. His birthday. Hours passed in a blur. Everyone sang for Grandma, took pictures, danced. But Arham didn't join in. My sister Fatima whispered, "Your boy's quiet today." And I just smiled, brushing it off. "He's just tired," I said. Oh, how wrong I was. When evening came and guests started to leave, I found him sitting by the window, holding a deflated balloon and staring outside. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, kneeling beside him. "Why aren't you with the others?" He looked up at me, eyes glistening. "Mom, did you forget?" My smile froze. "Forget what, honey?" "My birthday." The world fell silent for a moment. The music from the living room faded, and all I could hear was the thumping of my own heart. I blinked, my throat tightening. "Oh, Arham," I whispered. I had, completely, forgotten. He didn't cry right away. He just looked down and said in the smallest voice, "It's okay, Mommy. Grandma's birthday is more important." That broke me. I hugged him tight, my tears wetting his soft hair. "No, baby. Yours is important too. I'm so sorry." He smiled faintly, trying to be brave. "It's okay. Maybe next year we can celebrate together." Later that night, as everyone slept, I sat in the dark, replaying his words. I saw how I'd missed the signs and the card he'd made, the little drawing on the fridge, the way he'd tried to remind me days earlier. I had let life's noise drown out my own child's happiness. I walked into his room and saw the calendar with a red heart around today's date. Underneath it, he'd written in his uneven handwriting, "Mom and me, cake day." My chest ached. I decided right there that tomorrow I'd make it right. Not with balloons or parties, but with something that would show him he was never forgotten. Not in my heart. Not ever again. Closing hook for chapter end, building emotion and suspense. I had no idea that my simple plan to fix my mistake would lead to something that would change our entire family forever. What happened the next morning will melt your heart, and might even make you tear up. So before you move to the next chapter, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live, because Chapter 2 will show how a mother's regret turned into the most beautiful surprise of all. That night, sleep refused to come. I sat by Arham's bedside watching him dream. His tiny fingers clutched the corner of his blanket, and a faint smile curved on his lips. Maybe he was dreaming of the birthday that should have been. Every time I blinked, guilt hit me harder. How could I forget something so precious? The sound of the old clock ticking in the hallway felt like a reminder with every passing second. You forgot. You forgot. I slipped out quietly and went to the kitchen. The leftover decorations from Grandma's party were still scattered. Golden ribbons, paper plates, half-empty soda bottles. I looked at them and whispered, "No, not this time." I started cleaning up and pulled out whatever I could find. Flour, sugar, cocoa powder, eggs. I wasn't a baker, but tonight I had a mission. At 2 a.m. I was in full swing. Flour dust covered my hair and my hands trembled from exhaustion, but I didn't care. The oven light glowed softly as I watched the cake rise. Messy, imperfect, cracked at the edges, but made with every bit of love I had. I found a candle in the drawer, not fancy. Just a leftover from a power outage, and stuck it right in the middle of the warm cake. When I looked at the small flame, I made a silent promise. No matter how busy life gets, I'll never let my son feel invisible again. By morning, the sun painted our living room gold. I set up the breakfast table with the little cake, a glass of milk, and the card he'd made yesterday, the one I'd ignored. I added a sticky note that said, "Happy birthday, my little hero. Love, Mom." Then I woke him up gently. "Aram," I whispered, brushing his hair back, "I have something to show you." He rubbed his sleepy eyes and followed me. When he saw the table, his mouth dropped open. "Mom, is that for me?" I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "It's not big or perfect, but it's yours." He smiled wide and bright, the kind of smile that could heal anything. "Can I blow the candle now?" "Only if you make a wish first." He closed his eyes tight, took a deep breath, and blew it out. "What did you wish for?" I asked. He giggled. "I wished that you never forget again." We both laughed, and I pulled him into my arms. For a moment, it felt like the world had stopped. No noise, no phones, no guests. Just a mother and her son, healing through a small piece of cake. But before we could sit down to eat, Grandma walked in. She stopped when she saw the scene, the cake, the note, and my tear-streaked face. "Oh, my dear," she whispered, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You made it right." I nodded, but something in her eyes told me she wasn't done. She smiled and said softly, "Let's make sure everyone remembers next year. Birthdays aren't just for celebration, they're for connection." Her words planted a seed in my heart. That moment I realized this wasn't just about one forgotten day. It was about how our family had drifted into routines, letting the little things slip away. Later that afternoon, as Arham proudly showed his cake to everyone, my mother gathered us all and said, "From now on, we celebrate every birthday, big or small, together." And that's when the real story began. Because that simple promise, born from a child's tears and a mother's guilt, would soon uncover something even deeper, a truth none of us expected to face. End of chapter. Hook plus engagement. Little did I know that behind that smile, my son was hiding something, a reason he hadn't reminded me sooner. And when I discovered it, it shattered me. The next few days after Aram's belated birthday felt lighter. He was cheerful again, humming little songs, running around the house, showing his birthday card to everyone who'd missed it. I thought everything was back to normal. But mothers know when something isn't quite right, even when their child smiles. One evening, as I was folding laundry in his room, I found a small notebook under his pillow, the one with cartoon rockets on the cover. Arham called it his dream book. I smiled, thinking I'd see doodles of superheroes or car sketches. But when I opened it, my hands froze. The first page said in uneven handwriting, "Things I can do so Mommy doesn't forget me again." My heart sank. I turned the pages slowly, each one filled with innocent but painful notes. "Help Mom in kitchen. Be quiet when she talks on phone. Don't ask too many questions. Smile even when she's busy." And then, on the last page, written in shaky letters, "Maybe if I'm really good, she'll remember my birthday next time." Tears blurred my vision. I clutched the notebook to my chest and sat on his bed, sobbing silently. My little boy thought my forgetfulness meant he wasn't good enough to be remembered. The guilt that flooded through me was unbearable. When he walked into the room and saw me crying, he panicked. "Mommy, what happened? Did I do something wrong?" I pulled him close, shaking my head. "No, baby. You did everything right. I read your dream book." His face fell. "You weren't supposed to read that." "I know," I whispered, wiping my tears. "But I needed to, because I didn't realize how much I hurt you." He looked down, fiddling with the hem of his shirt. "I didn't want to make you sad. You work so much. Grandma said grown-ups forget sometimes, so I thought if I was quieter, you wouldn't be tired of me." That broke me all over again. I held his face in my hands. "Aram, listen to me. I could never be tired of you. You are my reason to keep going. You don't have to earn my love, baby. You already have it, always." He didn't reply. He just hugged me tight, whispering, "Promise?" I nodded. Promise. That night I couldn't sleep again. His words echoed in my mind, "Maybe if I'm really good." I realized this wasn't just about a birthday. It was about how my son was learning love through silence. believing attention had to be earned, not given freely. The next morning, I spoke with my mother over tea. "Mom, I failed him," I confessed. She smiled gently, placing her wrinkled hand over mine. "No, dear. You made a mistake, but you're fixing it now. Do you know what matters most? That you saw his pain and didn't turn away." Her words gave me strength. That afternoon, I called a family meeting. Everyone gathered in the living room. Aram looked confused as I stood holding his little notebook. "I need everyone to hear this," I began softly. "We celebrate, we laugh, we post pictures, but do we really see each other anymore?" The room grew quiet. My siblings shifted uncomfortably. I continued. "Yesterday I found something that reminded me what family means. It's not just being there for big events. It's remembering the small hearts that make those moments special." Then I handed the notebook to my mother, who read it silently, her eyes misting. Without a word, she hugged Aram. "You, my dear boy, are unforgettable," she said. Everyone joined in. One by one, they surrounded him, promising never to let any of us feel unseen again. Aram smiled shyly, clutching Grandma's hand. And in that small circle of love, I saw something change, not just in him, but in all of us. End of chapter. Hook plus engagement. But I didn't know life had one more twist waiting. Because just when our hearts began to heal, something unexpected happened. Something that would test every promise we made that day. A week after that emotional family meeting, the house felt different, lighter, kinder. My siblings started dropping by more often. Grandma smiled brighter and Aram's laughter, oh, that sweet laughter, filled every corner again. It was like the walls themselves had forgiven us. But just when I thought everything was back to normal, something beautiful and completely unexpected happened. One Saturday morning, I was cooking breakfast when Aram came rushing into the kitchen. Mom, Grandma says we're having a surprise today." I frowned, half laughing. "A surprise? What kind of surprise?" He shrugged, pretending not to know, but his eyes sparkled. "I can't tell you." Grandma said it's top secret. By afternoon, I began to notice strange things. My brother was decorating the living room again. Balloons, ribbons, streamers. My sister carried a big box wrapped in shiny paper. And in the middle of it all, Grandma was directing everyone like a general on a mission. I looked around in confusion. "Mom, what's going on?" She grinned. "You'll see." Then, as the clock hit 5, she turned off the lights. The house went quiet. I heard whispers, giggles, and the sound of tiny feet running across the floor. Suddenly, surprise! The lights came on and I stood frozen. The entire room was filled with decorations, blue and gold balloons, a banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Aram, Part 2, because love deserves a do-over." Tears instantly welled up in my eyes. Aram stood in the center, wearing a handmade paper crown, grinning from ear to ear. "Mom, Grandma said everyone deserves a second chance, so we're having another party for my birthday." The whole family burst into laughter and applause. My sister handed me a frosting-covered cake that read, "From Mom to Son, Love Round 2." I looked at my mother, speechless. She nodded, her eyes glimmering. "This isn't just his birthday, dear. It's yours too. Your second chance as a mom to celebrate what matters most." I knelt down beside Aram, tears streaming freely now. "You did all this?" He nodded proudly. "Grandma helped. I told her I wanted you to smile this time, and like I did." In that moment, I couldn't hold back. I hugged him so tightly he squealed. "You amazing, forgiving little boy," I whispered. "You taught me more about love than I ever knew." Everyone joined in the celebration. Music, laughter, and heartfelt warmth filled the air. My brother started a silly dance, my sister sang off-key, and Grandma clapped along, looking like the happiest woman alive. Then came the cake moment. I held the knife with Aram's tiny hand over mine. "Ready?" I asked. He nodded eagerly. Together we cut the cake while everyone cheered. The sound of applause echoed through the house, but what I heard most was the beating of my heart. Steady, grateful, alive. After everyone left, Aram sat beside me on the couch, nibbling on frosting. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart? Can we have a birthday like this every year? Not for gifts or cakes, but just to be happy together." I smiled through tears. "We will, my love. Every year, and not just on birthdays. Every day can be our together day. He leaned against my shoulder, whispering softly, "Best birthday ever." I kissed his forehead and whispered back, "No, Arham, best lesson ever." And that night, as the lights dimmed and the last candle flickered out, I realized something powerful. Forgiveness doesn't just heal others, it heals you too. Because in that small living room filled with laughter, we didn't just celebrate a forgotten birthday. We celebrated a family finding its heart again. End of chapter. Hook plus engagement. But just when I thought the story had reached its perfect ending, fate had one more surprise. A letter that arrived a week later, revealing something I never expected about Aram's dream book. A week passed after the second birthday celebration, and peace had returned to our home. Aram was happier than I'd ever seen him, humming while doing homework, drawing superheroes with wild capes, and making sure to hug me every night before bed. For the first time in a long time, life felt whole again. Then, one morning as I checked the mailbox, I found a small white envelope with no sender name, just "For Mom," written in a child's handwriting. I smiled, recognizing Aram's crooked letters, and opened it gently. Inside was a folded paper with a few simple lines. "Dear Mom, if I ever forget how much you love me, please read this. Because even when you forgot my birthday, you still came back for me. I don't need gifts. I just need you. Love, Aram." My heart tightened as tears blurred my vision. That one small note, written by an 8-year-old boy, held more wisdom than any adult could offer. I pressed the letter against my chest and whispered, "You'll never have to remind me again, my love." Later that evening, Grandma gathered us all in the living room again. "There's something I want to say," she began, her voice warm but firm. "Do you all see what this boy has done for our family?" One forgotten birthday turned into the most beautiful reminder of love I've ever witnessed. Everyone nodded, eyes glistening. My brother, who usually teased everyone, cleared his throat and said, "You know, we've been taking each other for granted. Maybe it's time we start a new family tradition, one where we write letters to each other every year. Not just for birthdays, but for love." Aram clapped his hands excitedly. "Can I start?" "Of course," Grandma smiled. "You already did." That night, after everyone left, I sat with Aram by the window, watching the moon glow softly through the curtains. He rested his head on my lap and asked, "Mom, were you sad when you forgot my birthday?" I smiled faintly. "Yes, very sad. But I think it happened for a reason." He looked up curious. "Why?" "Because sometimes love needs to stumble before it learns to walk again. If I hadn't forgotten, maybe I wouldn't have realized how much you mean to me." He thought about it for a moment, then whispered, "I'm glad you remembered after all." I laughed softly, kissing his forehead. "Me too, my little teacher." As he drifted to sleep, I glanced at the calendar on the wall. This time I circled not just his birthday, but every date that mattered. His school recital, our family dinners, Grandma's checkups, and every reminder of love I refused to miss again. A few days later, I framed his little letter and hung it in the hallway, right beside our family photo. It read, "Even when you forgot, you still came back for me." That line became more than just words. It became our family's promise. Whenever things got busy, whenever we lost our way, we'd look at that note and remember, love doesn't fade with mistakes. It grows through forgiveness. Months later, during another family gathering, Aram stood on a chair and raised his glass of juice. "To all the moms who forget sometimes," he said proudly, "and all the kids who forgive always." Everyone laughed, clapped, and cheered. But me, I cried, because in that moment I realized I hadn't just remembered his birthday. I had remembered what it truly means to be a mother.